of Unboxed. I'm so glad that you decided to join us. So what I do is I want to spend a couple of times together discussing what I learned from my visit with my parents. I think you're going to be enlightened. Stick around as we unbox this subject. I'm Dr. Robert Davis, family life educator and relationship coach. And welcome to Unboxed, a frank and straightforward conversation about relationships. We're going to talk about family, church, workplace, and all other types of relationships. Join me for the next few moments as we unbox the power and potential of relationships and help you to live your best life. All right, welcome. So glad to have each one of you joining us today. Before we get started, do me a huge favor. Please make sure that you like, subscribe, and share. That's right, like, subscribe, and share. And if you're listening to this via podcast, you need to check out our website. It's www.swg-unboxed.org. We're Seasoned with Grace Unboxed. So that's swg-unboxed.org. Okay. As you know, I'm very intentional about spending time with my mother and father and other members of my family, especially close, intimate relatives, or what I refer to as significant members of my family, significant from an emotional perspective, in that they are the ones that have the strongest emotional ties with. And I've talked about this before. Go back and watch some of our previous broadcasts, and I think it'll help to make a little more sense. But spending time with family really does help us in every other one of our relationships. Matter of fact, I have come to believe that the more we are intentional about improving our family relationships, then the more we will be able to improve every relationship that we are a part of, whether it is church family, workplace family, community organization family. And I just throw in family at the end of it because they all operate, under the same principles. But no matter what relationship system we are a part of, we will be able to function better if we go back to the original source, work on and work out whatever challenges, issues, or relationship dynamics that there may be. We can bring what we learn into our other relationships. So as I share with you, several times a year, I make it my business to go visit my parents. One, because they're getting elderly and they need their son to just drop in, check on them, help them to do things around the house, spend time with them. You never know how much more time we have. But while I'm there, I really try to be thoughtful and intentional about observing how I function and how I relate in relationships. And I'm going to share with you 3 things that I learned over this broadcast and our next broadcast. And the first thing that I learned that I think is really important is that I've discovered how challenging it is to maintain one-to-one contact with all the significant members of the family. And let me dig into that a little deeper, what I'm talking about here. In order for us to become emotionally mature and to be able to define who we are in and out of relationships, it is important for us to maintain one-to-one contact with the significant people in that relationship system. We live in a generation and a time where if someone gets on your nerves, if someone, talks harsh to you, if someone comes across, abrasive, if someone is a jerk or obnoxious, then the first knee jerk, and it's actually encouraged, unfortunately, by so much in our society, which is to say, cut off. Just don't be bothered with them. You don't need that kind of energy around you. You don't need to have those people clinging on to you. And that is so counterproductive, as I have shared before. It is counterproductive because how are you going to learn to manage difficult relationships if you are not learning to do it inside of difficult relationships? So it is vitally important to maintain one-to-one contact with each significant member of the relationship system. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone in the relationship system you're going to have challenges with or difficulties with. Matter of fact, you may be a blessed person that comes from a functioning, healthy family where you actually do get along with every significant person, your siblings, your parents, your grandparents, your aunts and uncles, as well as your cousins. I asked you, well, do you have any challenges? You really can't point to any major issues that you have. So, I want to applaud those whose families were intentional and were deliberate in developing healthy relationships. But even in that environment that is, healthy and thriving, or in an environment that has very challenging, very difficult relationships, it is important to maintain one-to-one contact, knowing how to stay in contact. And what I discovered is, and this translates into leadership, because we also have to maintain one-to-one contact with the significant people within our workplace family. And what I've discovered is, wow, it is a little more challenging than I thought, especially in this very busy world. And oftentimes as leaders, we will only interact with those individuals that we have to interact with, and we're sporadic in interacting with the extended part of our team. And so what I want to do, encourage you today, is to, on your schedule, as you develop your time, think about how can I establish one-to-one contact with each of the significant. I use the word significant because you'll define that for your relationship system. But for how can I maintain one-to-one contact with each of the significant members of my family? And this was important to me as I close, because as I was visiting my family, my mother and father in Alabama, there's a very important matriarch in our family who has been so instrumental in helping me to do my family research. And I just got so twisted around and busy and running that I didn't reach out to her while I was there. This is my Aunt Hattie. And so today I called my Aunt Hattie and I said, hey, listen, you know what? I apologize. I was in town and I didn't reach out to you. She was so gracious. She said, I know that you're here for your parents. Don't ever worry about that. You and I will have plenty of time to catch up and talk. And then she and I had a wonderful conversation. But the intentionality of developing the schedule, of actually penciling in each member on your team to do lunch with, to spend time with, helps you to grow as a leader. It helps you to identify where your emotional weaknesses are, where you need to grow, and how you can improve in your leadership skills. I'm going to share the other two with you next time. That's all I have for today. Please tune back in the next time and make sure that we unbox the power and the potential of our leadership by unboxing the power and the potential of every one of our relationships. Take care.
Seasoned with Grace, Unboxed also provides healthy relationship training and leadership development for businesses, churches, and community organizations. For a free consultation to discuss your team's needs, please contact us at our website at swg-unboxed.org. That's swg-unboxed.org.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unboxed. I'm so glad that you've decided to join us. Let me share with you the second part of what I learned about leadership by visiting my parents. Stick around as we unbox this subject. I'm Dr. Robert Davis, family life educator and relationship coach. And welcome to Unboxed, a frank and straightforward conversation about relationships. We're going to talk about family, church, workplace, and all other types of relationships. Join me for the next few moments as we unbox the power and potential of relationships and help you to live your best life. All right. Welcome. So glad to have each one of you here with us today. Before we get started, please make sure that you like, subscribe, and share. That's right. Like, subscribe, and share. And if you're listening to us via podcast, the website that I want you to check out is www.swg-unboxed.org. That's swg-unboxed.org. So the last time that we were together, I talked about my visit to, I talked about how last week I went to visit my mother and father in Alabama. And I began to share with you some of the things that I learned as I went and made this visit that really helps to grow my leadership. And the first thing that I shared was I learned how challenging it is to maintain one-to-one contact with the significant members of the family, and how important it is to maintain one-to-one contact, but it can be challenging. So we have to be intentional about putting family members, team members within the workplace on our calendar. But the second thing that I learned is this right here. Internal reactivity is just as important as external reactivity. Oftentimes, as leaders, we become polished through education and through experience, not to react based on how we feel, but rather to react in a polished, professional way. And so we even know how to put people in their place in a very professional way via emails, memos, etc. But while we have mastered the skill of not being reactive externally, in other words, we don't cuss people out or punch people in the mouth or fall out with folk on our jobs for the most part. There's still a lot of internal reactivity. And what I want to do is I want to encourage you to not just focus on how you react externally, but also to spend time focusing on how you are internalizing relationship challenges and relationship difficulties. Become very clear about what you're feeling as you interact with certain individuals and as various situations arise. Because the less that we are aware of how we're feeling, and then number two, developing a strategy on how we're going to function when we feel certain ways, the more likely it is that we are going to we are going to respond and become reactive. So I want you to think about that. The second thing is the internal emotional reactivity. This is very important. The emotional internal reactivity really does show us how emotionally fused we are with people. In other words, how much we're connected to them in a unconstructive way, which gives them control and power over us. So being aware of how of the emotions that arise when we're in relationship with a particular person or when a particular situation arises, then it really helps us to understand just how much control, how much power another person has over top of us. And so working on how we are internalizing and the feelings that we have, becoming aware of them and becoming clear about how we want to process those feelings really does help us to be stronger, more productive leaders. The third thing that I learned by visiting my family is that leaders should be more curious than judgmental. Leaders should be more curious than judgmental. And I want to back up. The reason that I shared that second one with you, I forgot to tell you a quick little story, is because I have discovered that while I may not respond a particular way when my mother or father or other family members do things that annoy me, I still have those internal struggles. And while I may be smiling on the outside, I'm fuming on the inside. And I'm recognizing how unhealthy it is when I'm not in control of the internal, even if I'm in control of my external response. So number three, here it is. Leaders should be more curious than judgmental. One of the things that I have discovered as it relates to interacting with family is the importance of just being curious, almost putting on your investigator's cap, your researcher's cap. And rather than trying to judge, rather than trying to figure out the why, and that's what the judging is. Why do they do this? Why do they do the other? What's wrong with them? They're liars, they're this, and trying to label people. It's a lot better to become more curious about the process that you're watching unfold before you. Because what you're actually seeing is you're seeing people who are managing relationship difficulties and using various techniques to do so. When you see someone who struggles with lying, someone who is, conflictual, always starting conflict, when you see someone who, cuts off and is silent and kind of retreats, doesn't have anything to do with the family or distances from the family, you're seeing people who are actually using different mechanisms and different strategies to manage the relationship and the difficulties within the relationship. The more curious you become about how people manage relationships and less judgmental about why they do it and labeling them for what they do, the more you're able to empathize and sympathize with your team. Because if you can do that with your family, you can be a lot more effective at doing it in all of your other relationship systems, especially with your team, to be able to understand, okay, this is what's going on within my team. This is how they're managing these relationship difficulties. It's not about, how bad they are, but then how can I model for them more effective ways to manage themselves within these various relationship challenges. And rather than lecturing, I actually want to model it to show them this is how an individual manages relationship challenges and difficulties. These are just a few things that I learned by being with my family. I want to encourage you to spend time with your family, to be intentional about the things that you observe, mostly about yourself as you're interacting with your family. And because, as we know here at Unbox, that if we can unbox the power and the potential of relationships, then we can unbox the power and the potential of our leadership. I'll see you the next time.
Seasoned with Grace, Unboxed also provides healthy relationship training and leadership development for businesses, churches, and community organizations. For a free consultation to discuss your team's needs, please contact us at our website at swg-unboxed.org. That's swg-unboxed.org.
That's it.
You look at you.
Mm-hmm.